Hey guys, Kevin Cleary with a knife video for you. Today I have a neat little folder from Buck. This is the Buck Apex. Now this is a very small, lightweight folder, not really designed to be for EDC. They market it for they have a picture of a rock climber or something on the box. And that's obviously, if you're doing something extreme in the outdoors, you should probably have a fixed blade with you, especially if there's any chance that you'll need your knife for any kind of survival or self-defense type of stuff, or even hard use bushcrafting stuff. Just carry a fixed blade. And so I wouldn't say this knife is, ideal for where they kind of market it, unless you're one of those extreme lightweight backpackers who makes all kinds of sacrifices to get very, very light. Now, what I do find this very good for is what most people are probably going to use it for, and that is, I have this clipped to my backpack, and it's always there as sort of an extra blade. And in that role, I've used it for a bunch of different things. Driving down the road, the other day, my son had a package. Said, "Dad, can you open this?" Well, I'm sitting in the car. I can't very well get to my pocket knife very well. So sure, I'm going to clip this from my backpack and make a cut like that with it. And for that, it is ideal. Okay, now I've done some extra stuff with this. I've cut up some apples and different stuff that normally I would say this is not designed for, but I just do that kind of stuff to get a sense for how the blade performs. All right, and of course, try to do some cardboard cutting and stuff like that to see how it holds an edge. And I've actually been rather pleased with this particular knife. So, by way of introduction, yeah, I saw this when it was first introduced. I thought it looked pretty cool. I like the idea that it was lightweight. I like the somewhat different looking design. Okay. Reminds me of a number of others. CRKT has some knives like this, and a number of companies do. Anyway, that's what kind of got me interested. So I saw these on sale, and I added it to an order for another knife that I was picking up, and I've been fairly impressed with it. Now, let's start off with size and weight. And you guys, I've already said this is not my EDC knife, so you need to keep in mind in the back, keep in the back of your mind as we go through my comments that, when I say things about this knife, I'm not suggesting that it replace whatever you're putting in your pocket. For most people, I would say, hey, you should have 3.5 inches. My EDC today is my SAG Aegis. However, there is one exception to that rule, and I think this would actually work well as a gift knife. It's kind of interesting. The design is a little different than a lot of people have seen. It's very lightweight, it's fairly reasonable in price, so you could give this as a gift, and a lot of people may carry it that wouldn't normally carry a knife. The other thing is this comes in some different color options, which may make it popular for, some girls or others who just, they might carry something that's bright orange and kind of interesting and flashy, where they wouldn't carry something that was, I don't know, just black like the Bro Silent Soldier. So, those are kind of places I see this fitting in, and the comments that I'm going to make are coming from that direction. I say this by way of introduction, so that you guys don't think I'm talking about this as being a great EDC knife. Okay, in the role that I think it's designed for, to be sort of a backup, secondary, or even tertiary knife when you're going to throw in, a small med bag, or clip to your backpack, or clip inside your purse or something like that with the carabiner, then you've got a reasonably good knife for that kind of a role. All right, so that's my sort of introduction. I just want to give you guys a context for the comments that I'm going to make. Now let's get into the size and weight and stuff like that, and we'll do some comparisons and all of that. So, size and weight on this, it is 6¼ inches overall. The blade length is 2 5/8, and the cutting edge, you can see that there's this cutout here, so the cutting edge is 2 3/8. The handle measurement is kind of interesting, because in the folded down configuration, the handle, or the measurement, is 3 3/4 inches. But if you have the blade open and you just measure the handle, it's more like 3.5 or 3 5/8, because you can see that the blade kind of makes this angle upward that actually extends it beyond where the top of the handle ends. Okay, so when I'm giving you measurements, keep in mind that the closed measurement is the closed measurement rather than an actual handle measurement. Okay, and that measurement, of course, is 3 3/4 inches. Now, the weight on this is one thing that's pretty cool. It is 1.65 ounces. That's a little bit lighter than the stainless steel version because of the carbon fiber on here, and really that's only there because I kind of like carbon fiber. It serves no real practical purpose. other than aesthetics, and maybe like you're cutting half an ounce off of a 2 ounce, off of a sub 2 ounce knife. Okay, so it's really not significant in terms of weight savings. Now, the blade on this, okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's do a couple of quick size comparisons so you kind of know what we're dealing with. So as I said, 6 1/4 inches. Here is a Leatherman style. This is the scissor version. You can see how those two compare. I've got a Leatherman squirt here I can show you as well. So there's a Leatherman squirt. And I'm showing you those because I think they're fairly familiar to people. Another similar blade length would be the Silent Soldier. And again, I find this knife goes in a similar role, although it's more practical. This is going to be more durable, and you'd probably get more use out of it than you would out of this knife, just because you can really pound on this thing without breaking it, where I wouldn't want to pound on this at all. So we've got that's the Silent Soldier. I'll do one more comparison, not because this knife is really very comparable, but because this is a fairly well-known, Swiss Army knives are quite common, and so if you've got a full-size Swiss Army knife, you can see that they're about the same size. Obviously the Swiss Army knife in my case is much bigger and heavier because it's the Swiss Champ, which has a bunch of different stuff on it, making it larger and considerably heavier. Now, that's the size and weight, and those are some comparisons so you kind of have a sense for that. It is very lightweight. It's basically, you know, it's only marginally heavier than the 2 mini multi-tools that I've got, and they're very, very light. Okay, so that's the size and weight. You can see this to be a really, really comfortable knife to clip on your backpack. You'd never notice it. It's been bouncing around my backpack for a while now, and I've had no, you know, one, it hasn't fallen off, so the carabiner is quite reliable. Number two, it hasn't gotten in the way, and it's certainly more than lightweight enough that I haven't really noticed it. All right, so let's move on and talk about the blade now that we've got size and weight kind of out of the way. Blade on this is a gray coated drop point blade with a hollow grind, and it is 420 HC steel. Let me zoom in a little bit. Normally, I would shy away from that steel, but Buck tends to do a pretty good job with this steel, so I can't really complain that much. In fact, I've had pretty good performance out of this, and I've done a fair bit of cutting with it. I'll speak to that as well when I talk about the handle, because I will say, on a note of practicality, the handle is a lot nicer than a lot of small knives that I've tried. All right, it does have a hollow grind, which I definitely like. I like that in general for my EDC knives, and it's nice and thin behind the edge. So this will slice extremely, extremely well. And just in case you're wondering how well, I can tell you that earlier today I was holding this knife and somehow I kind of slipped out of my hand and just perfectly dropped this way right into my leg. Now it only dropped maybe a foot, if even that, but it actually cut me fairly badly. And I've dropped knives and, you know, dropped them and even caught them before without being cut at all. All right. So the fact that this is that sharp is rather impressive. Now, the blade length does limit you in some ways, okay? I prefer a longer blade just for the usefulness of it, okay? A blade like this, you'd have a hard time cutting an apple in half, let's say, just because you won't reach all the way across most apples. If you're just peeling an orange or opening a package or cutting threads off your sweater, hey, no big deal. A 1-inch blade would be sufficient for that, okay? So for that kind of roll, this is just fine. And that's why I don't use it as my EDC knife. I use it as, you know, sort of a secondary knife clipped to my backpack for those times where maybe I can't get into my pocket very easily. So that's the blade on this. Pretty cool. The coating has been holding up really well, although I haven't gone and chopped down any trees with this. You know, a lot of knives by this time, you know, if this was a cold steel with their black coating that they used to have, before 2015, it would have already worn out quite badly. So this coating has held up pretty good, but it is a sort of a painted on coating, so it's going to be prone to chipping like any other. All right, So let's see. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the blade, but the lock I will talk about a little. This is a frame lock, but it's done in a kind of a different way. Okay, so right here is the front of the stainless steel part of this knife, and notice that it's not actually cut out. The lock bar, I'll turn it over so you can see this better. The lock bar is right here, and it's actually the whole thing is cut out so that if I push here, you'll see this go flush, and now the knife closes. Let me focus, there we go. Watch as I open it, you can see the lock pop back into place. Okay, so kind of a cool way of doing the lock bar. It's certainly not, you know, a super hard use, robust folder. Okay, the lock bar is fairly thin. It's even, in addition to being thin already, there's a cutout to make it move easier. And when we talk about lockup and deployment, I should add that this is not a sort of flickable knife. It's actually fairly stiff. If you're opening it and closing it one-handed, very, very easy, right? No problem there. But while I would say it does open and close nicely with one hand, let me zoom out so we can, I think we've gotten past that frame lock discussion, so it's time to come back out here a little bit. There we go. So while it does open and close easily with one hand, it's not really a flicking type of knife, okay? So lockup and deployment opens up easily with one hand. The frame is the lock bar is easy to get to, so it's easily disengaged. Okay, pops into place quite nicely, and the lockup is fairly early, which sometimes on a more budget knife that doesn't happen, right? Because the tolerances are not as tight, you'll get a later lockup. These guys retail for, I don't know, like $25 to $30, I think. Anyway, moving on to deployment. The washers in here are bronze and Teflon. Teflon is against the blade, the bronze is on the outside. One other thing I will say about lockup and deployment, this is not a lefty friendly knife. If I switch this to my left hand, notice I cannot get my thumb into that hole at all. Now if you take your finger, notice my middle finger here, I can open the blade partially and then do that. So it's not that it doesn't work, but it's just not as accessible as it is to your right hand. All right. So you may want to think about that if you're left-handed, or if you are strongly, if you're strongly desiring an ambidextrous knife. This really isn't what I would consider ambidextrous. I guess it's probably not what anyone would consider ambidextrous. Let's see, handle. Let's go ahead and talk about the handle now. One thing that I will say about this knife as a very positive feature is the handle is larger than a lot of small knives. Part of that is because to allow for this carabiner to be on the end. And the carabiner is, I like it because that's how I carry the knife. I clip it to different things that I'm going to have with me. You may not be into that at all, and that's totally fine. All right. But I will say there's a decent amount of handle real estate. It's not the most comfortable knife ever. Look how thin it is, okay? Nothing this thin is going to be amazingly comfortable, but it's totally fine for everything that I have had ever to do with it. And so I can't really complain about ergonomics. It's, as I say, it's not, I'm not gonna be raving about how great it is, but certainly it's not anything to take issue with. I do like the overall design. I like the sort of interesting, kind of innovative way that they fit the blade with the carbon fiber scale, the standoffs. Everything about it is kind of, interesting looking and kind of fun to show to people and carry around. It does have this pocket clip, and I don't know, I'm not going to take it off, but I don't see this knife as a knife that I'm going to clip to my pocket anytime soon. All right. Now I did say before that some people may really like that. Okay, and there are people who carry very small, cheap knives all the time. Right. And so, especially if someone's not a knife person, as I said before, this would be a great gift because it's not too big, it's not too heavy. I think a lot of people that maybe wouldn't want to carry something like this, they would be totally fine carrying something like this. And so maybe it would work as a gift for a lot of different people that really aren't into knives, but you feel like, hey, they could probably use one. So there is that aspect to it, and it's kind of cool looking as well. So that always adds. A knife that looks kind of interesting is often more appreciated by someone than just a typical, if you're giving them a Cold Steel Recon 1 or an American Lawman, they'd just be like, what do I do with this? But this thing, like, hey, it looks cool, it's got carbon fiber on it, it's kind of interesting, so I'll carry it. Those of us who are in the know would go, come on, man, like, you're kind of okay. But for a gift, I think some of those features are kind of interesting and helpful. Let's see. Oh, the carabiner works just fine. I will say this, they talk about it being a bottle opener as well. I haven't opened any bottles with it. I haven't had the need to, so I can't really speak to that. But everything else, you know, I clip this all over the place, and it works really, really well. And that's exclusively the way I always carry this. That's why I bought it, and that's how I use it. All right, let's see. I don't think there's anything else to really tell you about this. The quality is quite good. The steel is, you know, 420HC is only so-so. You know, otherwise though, nice little knife. I wouldn't, for most of you who are watching this channel who are kind of into knives, I would say probably not, you know, the knife I'd recommend for your one and only EDC. You know, if you go back to the video I made before where, you know, hey, you're getting ready to buy a new knife, I would not say, hey, go out and buy this one, that's the only thing you'll ever need. But if you want a knife that you can clip to a backpack, if you want a knife that you can clip to, you know, something on your person, a coat or a sweater, or even a zipper, a keychain, all those kinds of roles, I think this knife would work very well. And I have no problem with it in that capacity. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk to you soon.